Hello and welcome back to the Josh Campbell channel. Thanks for spending your valuable time and thank you for learning how to build a healthy relationship and avoiding the men we're about to discuss. Now, something has gone popularly trending on Netflix called the Tinder Swindler, and I'm going to give you 5 lessons about men like this and how to avoid them. So a quick introduction of what the Tinder Swindler is, if you've never seen it before. It's a man who has lived an extravagant on the back end of frauding and manipulating and scamming women he's dating through the app. Now, there's so many themes that come up here. It's a narcissist, a sociopath that's taken advantage of empaths, those that are anxiously attached, and those he can basically take from transactionally, not in the sake of love, but to live this extravagant lifestyle. Sadly and extraordinarily, he managed to fraud up to $10 million through women and dating around Europe, flying himself around in jet-setting lifestyles and huge bills through dating. The guy, sadly, has also still been on the run. I think after this show, he did get jailed and nicked, but only got 15 months from his Israeli government, and he's still out there in the wild and has a potential Israeli girlfriend at the moment. Now, these men are in the marketplace, but it is to say, don't lose faith, because brilliant men still live out there. But here are 5 lessons we can learn from the Tinder Swindler for you not to fall for like men, sleazy, icky, disgusting men like this. Now, let's go. Lesson number 1, forget what Disney teaches you. Yes, even in the show, they do refer to Disney Princess Belle and the Beast and how one of the blonde ladies in the show wanted that man, that Prince Charming, to come and sweep her off her feet and rescue her. So this is showing elements of being a hopeless romantic with no power, no empowered stance, and having a man fill a void and have a man sweep you off your feet and rescue you because you feel like you're not enough and wholesome enough just as you are. Secondly, there is this theme of anxious attachment, this feeling that when there is absence of the masculine or absence of a man, then we become anxiously attached to achieving it, to acquiring it, meaning we outsource our power to the masculine and only feel like we are worthy of love or validated of love if the man swoops in and serves that purpose. So here we see a big vulnerability because women are very impressioned by Disney, especially as young girls, and that psychological propaganda that it's so powerfully built to be. Has you as an adult lived through with Disney princess ideals, and does that really reflect reality and true love? So let's explore a few of the princesses that you may have been programmed by and how we can switch the script. The most relevant of all to this situation is Jasmine and Aladdin. So Jasmine falls for the genie, the manipulation, the larger-than-life representation of the prince that hides behind it. So this is disgusting behaviour. It's basically showing off a front, a persona for the woman to be cast in the net, caught in the net, and struggling to really see who the true guy behind the facade is. So this gives men a free pass to show off a extravagant, magical, spiritual version of themselves to cast a net for little Jasmine to walk into. In Tinder Swindler, this happens all the way through with themes of materialism, an alpha male mask, and seducing you with ideals of riches, of lifestyles that you've never once experienced. So cut away Jasmine and try and find the true self. Men do wear masks, men do wear personas because they fear their authentic self being seen. So try your best to get under the mask, get to the true conversations and authentic connection as soon as you possibly can. We also have Sleeping Beauty and Snow White, so the situation of a prince coming in and kissing her on the lips without consent. It means that the masculine has all the power and the feminine seems very victim. Then we have Cinderella, who's saved by the nice Prince Charming from a toxic and abrasive household. So again, we're reliant upon external circumstances, we're reliant upon a man to save us from our home situation and not having that intuition or initiative to step outside for ourselves. Now, just like the Tinder Swindler, he sort of cast this net of, I'm going to introduce you to the riches of life. I'm going to take you on my private jet. I'm going to look after you financially. And so that's exactly what's happening. The woman in this situation is demonizing her own lifestyle. She's not really grateful for what she's currently got. And she's glorified and idealized this lifestyle of a manipulative sociopath who is using these ideals because he knows too well she's seeking them. So in this case that it becomes dangerous, Cinderella is a nice story in some sense, but in reality, when Cinderella is saved from absence or toxic past and familialhood, what happens is she'll just find familiar in a relationship. Meaning the man will not show her a new way, but draw into her patterns, will deliver exactly what she's experienced because she's scared of the uncertainty in trying new. The familiar feels safe, so the toxic partner or the new partner saving from a family is only just going to replicate the same patterns because he can get away with it. Then we have Ariel, who commits to a man having known him for a few days. She has no voice as well, so this expression of the feminine is not really being seen. She's again drawn out of things that are familiar and put into isolation, just like the Tinder Swindler when he gets them to fly out of the familiar country that they live in to seek out apartments or get on a private jet to see him just for a couple of coffees. And drawing you out of the comfort and into the wild makes him the only sense of familiar or comfort you can seek, because in a new country there's culture shock, in a new country there is no friends or support network, so you rely upon this man you're dating as the only form of familiar that you're seeking. Now, in that power dynamic, he has all the leverage if he has ill intent, which we now know he did. And then Ariel, without having a voice or to express herself, puts her in a prison to not speak up for her needs or set any boundaries. This is where Ariel's story becomes toxic. Then we have Belle and the Beast. Beast confines Belle and then yells and is abusive at her, which is terrible behaviour in relationships. He is also drawn to Belle's kindness and he believes that there is a future between them, so he's slightly and consistently changing. This is then proofing you as a princess to accept someone as who they are, even if they're toxic and abusive, and then starting to think that I can change him into my type, or believing in a future that he can change. Now, abusive, sociopathic, NPD kind of men will never change. It takes a big, deep spirituality discovery or an awakening to really do that. Now, if you're seeing signs of real deep work and not just as a token of manipulation, this is fantastic, but most likely, more than not, that there won't be delivering on promises for the future, and that sort of absolute shift internally is really difficult to achieve. And to wrap this lesson up, it's about you not falling for the first signs of love. Now, accepting the first signs of love does come from the father wound. This comes from an emotionally absent father who is not displaying emotional availability. So you as a woman will likely seek it in something that you've idealized in movies, proofed through friends' fathers, through romanticized ideals on reality TV shows or gossip news. You know, everything like this becomes your new proof for the masculine you should seek. And this unfamiliarity keeps you in the dark about what is true affection and what is the man you should be settling for. And now, a childhood with absence of affection or emotional availability means you have no cursor or a thing to aim for when you go back into dating. It also allows the man to give you morsels of affection and you to settle for that affection because at least it's something. At least you're feeling something through the things he's mesmerizing or seducing you with. This leads me on to lesson 2. If his life looks like a fairy tale, it probably is. Now, the man in this situation, he's wearing the alpha mask. He's the kind of the prudent, he's got the pouty lips and the flipping designer shirts and the glasses, and he thinks he's the top dog, just like James Bond. He's wearing the material mask. He's creating this idealized version that makes you, as a woman who seeks security financially, who potentially seeks legacy, who potentially seeks status, who potentially seeks security and longevity for a family that may come in the future. With his financial stability that he's showing off to you, this is deeply attractive. And in the documentary, he does promise a future with kids. So he's playing on your need for scarcity. He's playing on your biological clock to seek a family, which is one of the primary purposes of a woman and a nurturer who is probably watching this YouTube video here. And this is where he's got you in the snare. And if it's too good to be true, then I always say use Carl Jungian's psychological method of looking at the consequences and inferring the motivation. So these men are great at showing you and reacting to life, meaning that you have a lot of evidence with how they speak to you, what images they're portraying to you. Now, it's not to be super skeptical of big dreams and lovely ideas, because they are possible, but look at this persona, look at these ideas he's formulating into your mind and really infer the motivation. Figure out, why is he telling me all of these details? Why is he trying to draw up the perfect future for us both? Look into it, express it, and start to get to the bottom of these subjects. The documentary displays very surface level conversation. There's really no digging deep into who this character is. And what the documentary shows us is very surface level conversations like, I love you, boo, I miss you. Well, it's not getting down to the bottom of who this guy truly is. What's his story? What's his past? How was his mother and father treating him? What was his exes like? How does he react emotionally? What's his relationship with vulnerability and sensitivity like? Now, sociopaths and manipulators will be great at steering your attention to surface level conversations, or showing what we call cognitive empathy, a fake copycat version of pretending to care, when in reality they're just trying to create more evidence out of you. They're trying to infiltrate your weaknesses, and they're trying to gain trust from you artificially. So this flashy lifestyle, this overindulgence, this seducing you with love bombing, is it really truly meeting your love language? And find out your love language, because it stops him being sporadic and chaotic in his way to seduce you and completely cram you with affection to seduce you and get you in this kind of love coma for his own need. So get very clear on what you truly want and desire. Now, the Gary Chapman's 5 love languages is a good place to begin. Communicate that to your partner and allow that to be the kind of foundation of how you like to receive love. In the documentary, he's always sending material things like a big bouquet of roses. He's spilling lots of crap from his mouth in words of affirmation. He's doing some form of active service of getting you on the private jet and getting you into adventure. He's using lots of your impulsive and instinctual drives to stir up attraction. And it's exactly what he does in the documentary. He's sending bouquets of flowers to them all. He sends the same bloody messages to each and every woman. He's sending the same videos. He's sending the same scams and fraud tactics to get what he wants. Now, this is a huge red flag, and it's something to infiltrate for yourself. And one way we can take ourselves out of fairy tales is to associate pleasure with peace, instead of expedience and flashiness with pleasure. Lesson 3, it's not your job to save a man. Now, this is a empath's biggest weakness in some sense. It's about how you get your sense of self, your sense of confidence from helping other people. Now, this can correlate into saving or being the savior of the man that's in front of you. This only helps you abandon yourself for the sake of sacrificing your needs to appease his. In the documentary, he uses the typical sob story and the antagonist story, that there are people who want to get him. There are people after him. So you as an empathic woman will likely try to be the human shield against this. You'll start to get really worried about his sense of wellness. And this is what happens. He starts to help manipulate the women into being the hero of his story. And just how brands like Nike make you feel the hero so you buy their products. Things like just do it, and you're the athlete of your life, and you're taking action through the adverts that you watch. It's kind of the same manipulation tactic used in love, where he makes you feel like the hero, so you buy into his version of affection and protecting him. You're invested in him at that point. Just like you idolize brands, brands create antagonistic stories and allow you to be the hero, not the brand. Exactly what he's doing here. And when we save people as empaths, we do believe that in the future they could change. Is that if we love them enough or become their hero enough, they could be the person we've always desired and seen the potential in them being. Just like Belle and the Beast we spoke about earlier, you becoming the hero starts to abandon yourself. You start to sacrifice your own needs and start to sacrifice your own sense of self, meaning your distorted thoughts, your grounding is completely lost. You start to gain validation through helping, through acts of service, through affection, through serving that partner instead of yourself. You start to outsource your power, and if they're not reciprocating, likely that sociopaths don't, in a genuine manner, then your energy and your batteries will never be charged. Likely you're going to be depleted, especially at the early transactional phases of dating. So be careful, tread lightly, and make sure your energy is being reciprocated, that you're feeling charged up through the relationship and you're not being drained like an energy vampire will do to you. And to add to the point, this man is very dysregulated. You can see on the photos his dull look in his eyes, his health isn't all there. He just looks pretty shady. I think I can sense a narcissist, or I can sense a shady man through a photo quite well. But if you look at somebody who is not advocating for their health, they're not emotionally regulated, they're not really spending time with meditation, mindfulness, or spiritual practices, that is a big red flag that he's potentially not looking after his regulated nervous system. His unregulated nervous system is likely gonna inflict upon you. So look at things like thrills, expedience, excitement, because this could be a manifestation of him avoiding the deep, dark feelings, or the deep depth that you should be okay with, because if you're not okay with a depth of relationship or emotional capacity for it, then it's obvious that he's not got the space. Mr. Lviv, there was a couple of comments about him completely shifting his behavior, his sociopathic tendency of being nice 1 minute and then very aggressive the next. There was a woman who said he at once had foggy eyes when the stage of her actually finding him out and not paying him the money, and started to taint his association with the woman he was seducing through transaction, and the fact that she had no more value for him, which is very sad actually. He started to emotionally detach himself. This is huge, dangerous signs of a selfish and dangerous man. And lesson number 4 is about getting too close too quickly and becoming too vulnerable too soon, and sharing your deepest, darkest secrets far too soon. Now, the 2 women that we see in this documentary, they're feeling like he's listening. They're feeling like he's really asking insightful questions, but what he may be doing is infiltrating their weaknesses, used as ammunition against them to get what he wants. Now, it's why I like to confer it to Maslow's hierarchy of needs and the tiered intimacy disclosure. Now, look at these as 2 triangles. At the base, we have basic needs, and at the base, you should only start with small talk or things you're comfortable opening up with, just to feel that sense of security and safety before you operate at the next level of the hierarchy of needs. And that's where the deeper conversations come in, because trust is predicated upon time. Trust is hard to build, as they famously say, and easily lost, meaning it does depend on the time that you see this person for all sides of themselves, meaning it takes time for you to climb the hierarchy of needs and the tiered intimacy disclosure. So allow patience, and if somebody is over pushing your boundaries and forcing information out of you, then it's a massive red flag. Now, sociopaths and men that have ill intent tend to be great copycats. So you as an empath are likely easily coming into a room and feeling the energy. You'd naturally get it. But when sociopaths come into a room, they take a little bit of time. It's kind of this buffer moment where they're looking at other people and then copying people's images or copying people's body language or reciprocating the energy through learning it. Now, this is a very logical and cognitive approach, just like they use cognitive empathy. You may feel like they're empathic, they care, when in reality, they're just copycatting empathy. They know the rule book of how to care for somebody and just using the same words, using the same technique, and trying to draw it out of you so you tend to believe for the fakery. They're absolutely skillful at this stuff, and scarily skillful, so you need to have a very strong intuitive pulse and feel into that gut, feel into the heart, and ask it questions. Feel like, is this genuine for you right now? Is this authentic behavior happening? And did it come across naturally? Does it feel a bit awkward or off? These are signs to see if he's using cognitive empathy. And again, look at the motivation, see if it's transactional or genuine and he wants to know more about you. And so when you get vulnerable very quickly, what's beautiful about vulnerability is that it opens the door for connection. But there are such things as faux intimacy and faux connection, meaning they're fake. And he's really good at guilt tripping the female's moral compass, meaning sometimes he said, "You've stood by me all this way. I trust you. I love you. Please show me this sign of affection through sending me $100,000 through your bank account." Now, this is his way of sort of using your moral compass, your higher self, as a form of reverse psychology. He's sort of saying, you're a bad person if you do not send me the money. So he can't manipulate. The way you can ground yourself is to sort of get really clear on what is a good person to you. What is truly your highest self? Do you need to prove your highest self? Likely not. And is this person pushy, overstepping my boundaries? And the fact that I have no rapport with this person, how can they dictate if I'm a good or bad person or not? It's why it's incredibly important to get clear on your values, your mission statement, and what you truly stand for. Below, I've got a free mini course that you can sign up to, which will help you clarify all of those things. And lesson number 5, make sure his actions match his words. Traditionally, men are all about their talk and women about their body. Now, this is ways that men and women can seduce their partners. Men can take the charmer. Men can take what Robert Greene calls a coquette. A man who can Wordsworth his way to your heart. A man who can create desires through the written word. He's great at throwing you love bombs, great at giving you words of affirmation, great at idealizing a future for you to fall in love with him and the potential. You as a lady are tending to use seduction through body, through booty pictures, through twerking, through dancing, through seductive yoga, whatever it be. But this is traditionally how the masculine and feminine. Now you've got to find out who their authentic being is as soon as possible. Those who lack the sense of self are likely again to copy things. So just as this guy did, he used the same text over and over again, the same strategy, the same tactics to each and every woman, meaning he has a very low self-worth. He doesn't know who he truly is, and he knows that one way works, so he's not going to deteriorate or deviate to do something new, meaning he has low empathy or low tendency or inclination to vulnerability, because when we play with the uncertain or create new things, it means you have a high tolerance for vulnerability and a high tolerance for creativity and empathy. So him as a logical, conscientious type is likely going to be slightly more emotionally avoidant. Now we see this commonly through his shape-shifting behavior. He takes on so many different emotional tendencies through the communication with the women. He's lovey-dovey 1 minute and saying things in a very Prince Charming way 1 second, and when he doesn't get what he wants, it becomes aggressive. It's shape-shifting behavior. What we need to do is get as much contextual evidence as we can. So is their behavior or how they're coming across really matching the environment that they're in? Does it really seem called for? Is it very odd? You know, we can only really base our assumptions or judgment on evidence. So we need enough evidence and time with this person to start understanding whether this is truly them or they're being shape-shifting people. And look at where they lie with high stakes with no remorse, just like Lviv does. He's playing with mass amounts of money like it's nothing. There's no emotional attachment to it. He starts to feel no empathy or show cognitive empathy of actually feeling remorse to the woman who's lost a lot of money and getting really worried on the other side of the phone. It shows how he's detached from his emotional core and started to use human beings as transactional things. Another way you can spot this is looking at if they have zero stakes in high risk taking behavior, meaning they have no anxiety, they have no anxious pulse before they do something dangerous or scary to the normal person, because this shows that they have nothing to lose. There is no consequences for their actions. Just like Breaking Bad, the famous show on Netflix, is Walter White has been diagnosed with cancer, meaning he can play out all he could ever dream and desire to be, where he becomes one of the leading drug lords of the nation to accumulate a massive amount of wealth for his family and his legacy. So he becomes this real nice guy as a teacher and then becomes a drug lord with no stakes, because he knows he will pass away in time and it won't have any real consequences upon his family and himself. So he does everything possibly within his power to achieve the end. I don't want this episode for you to demonize men or riches or wealth, because they're not bad things. It's about shifting your association with them. It's about, despite what you've gone through and all this past adversity that you've gone through with toxic men, maybe just like Lviv, it's about rewriting that story, getting more crystal clear on your desires and clarity. It's about feeling through with absolute acceptance and minimal attachment from what you've gone through in the past, so you don't have any emotional residue projecting upon the future or the now. And most importantly, it's about tuning into that intuition so you can find the wholesome partner. It's not about finding someone who can meet you halfway or provide you what you don't currently own within yourself. It's about finding someone who makes you feel whole just as much as they portray themselves as whole. So we say it as whole because men like this wear masks to cover up their shadow. I talk about this more in another video on my YouTube channel, so feel free to tune into that one. But finding a partner that's fully integrated with both sides of themselves, both masculine and feminine energies, they have nothing to hide. They've really owned their insecurities and they truly can be seen, heard, and validated for who they are. Now, this man is on a runaway scale, and I hope to God he's not doing the same bulldozing effect on loads of women and their hearts. So hopefully this has educated you in some sort of way that dating men like this is just absolutely unideal. So for you to seek that partner, it's all about finding groundedness, inner security, and validating your own needs so you don't seek it externally. And if you don't already know, healthy relationships are bound between honesty, trust, transparency, and openness. Now, if any of these things are not in the equation, it's time to move on and not settle for less than your worth. And that's it. I can speak for England and can go on for more lessons, but I won't hold you any further. Thank you for spending your precious time and energy here on the channel. If you want to share it with a mate that you think will get lots of value from this for them to avoid toxic men, please do share it for them. Subscribe below and comment below anything that you agree with on this video, or if you've got anything you want to add with an opinion so we can debate. Now, if you want to watch the show, I do say with your own discretion, because I was there like watching the women, I'm like, oh my God, as a relationship coach, I was like, don't do it. But what's brilliant about spotting other people's mistakes is that we learn through that evidence and we integrate it in our own reality to not fall for the same mistakes. It's about seeking expanders for your consciousness and seeing that there is possibility for better. And here's a gentle reminder to keep leading with your heart rather than your head. I'll see you on the next one.